In a common city like any other, among wide streets and houses too organized to hide the inner chaos of those who live in them, there was an apartment on the third floor that seemed to no longer know what silence was. The walls were thin, the ceiling creaked even without footsteps, and the clock on the wall insisted on keeping time even for those who had already given up counting the days. That's where Lena lived, alone, but not in a poetic way. Alone like someone who tried so hard to feel something true that now she protects herself even from what is lukewarm. Her apartment was aesthetically impeccable, with cold lights and minimalist furniture. But you only had to enter to realize that it was all just the setting for a play that no longer had a script. A functional place, without a soul. A place where everything worked, except the heart. Lena used to love it, in a way that bordered on dangerous. She put everything, every part of her, on the table. Smile like someone who believes, cry like someone who bets. Until one day, the "stay with me," that she said with her soul turned into "dawn to deceive me," said with fear. The change did not happen all at once. It was slow, sneaky, a detour here, a disappointment there, like water dripping onto stone, invisible but inevitable. The house lights flickered as she walked down the hallway, as if the place breathed along with her restrained steps. The room seemed darker than necessary, even with the blinds open. Outside, the city was still alive, people running to places where they pretend they belong, horns shouting promises that no one keeps, loves quick as messages that disappear after being viewed. Lena sat on the sofa, as if sinking into memories. The phone vibrated every now and then, unimportant notifications from people pretending to care. She knew what that lack of depth meant. It was the new normal. Relationships came with invisible contracts. No bond, no delivery, no pain. But what no one said out loud was that even without pain, there was emptiness. An emptiness that hurt more. In the next room, there was a box that she swore she would never open again. Inside, letters that were never sent, photos that stopped in time, notes written in shaky handwriting of desperate love. Things that today would sound corny, but at that time were the only way to say, "I care." Today, that's scary. The world has changed. And it wasn't just technology. It was the way people started to look at each other, like someone evaluating a profile, not a soul. Nobody wants complications anymore. Everyone says that. But love has always been a beautiful complication. Now, bonds are made of silence shared on social media, of responses sent hours later, of cold invitations for meetings that end before they begin. She remembers the last one who broke her. There was no fight, just absence. He disappeared like smoke. No reason, no explanation. Ghosting, they call it. But for those who are left, this has another name. Undeclared abandonment. Since then, she began predicting departures even before arrivals, not trusting praise, filtering promises, silencing the heart. Being cold became a survival mechanism. The problem is that surviving is not living. There was a cafe 3 blocks away where she used to write. She wasn't a writer, but she had this habit of recording pain to see if it lessened. It was always in the same corner near the window. There, he watched others pretending to know what they were doing for a living. Couples who didn't look at each other. Friends who spoke more on the cell phone than in person. An entire generation talking without saying anything. And it was there that she saw something she couldn't explain. A couple sitting holding hands. But there were no smiles or kisses. There was silence. There were tears. And yet, there was presence. The kind of presence that you don't find in apps. An invisible but firm connection, as if they were saying to each other, "I'm here, even when it's hard." That disarmed her more than any kiss. Back at her apartment, she opened the box. And for the first time in years, he read one of the letters. The lyrics were her own, written in a random summer, for someone she loved enough to forget herself. In the letter, he asked him to stay, not because of lack, but because I felt that they could both be better together. And there, between lines blurred by time, he understood. The stay with me from before was noble. It was courage. But the world today has distorted that. Saying stay with me became synonymous with weakness, of dependence, of exposing yourself to ridicule. That's why today, people prefer to say, don't fool me. It's safer, it's more modern, it's colder. But it is no longer true. The sound of a sudden rain invaded the city, as if clearing the air charged with disconnection. Lena approached the window, her reflection distorted by the drops. There, he thought about all the times he begged for reciprocity and received silence. In all the moments when she preferred to disappear before being discarded. Every time you felt that loving was a miscalculation. She closed her eyes and imagined a version of herself that still believed. A Lena who would call someone close and say, without fear, I want to try. That version still existed, but it was buried under layers of disappointment and defensive irony. Because that's what people do when they get tired of feeling too much. They turn everything into a joke, a meme, an emoji. Even what is pain. And yet, amidst the digital noise, there is a raw, urgent need to truly be seen. No filter, no game, no strategy. Love like someone who throws themselves into the dark with the hope that someone is also there, waiting. But to do this, someone needs to be the first to break the cycle, stripping off the armor, to say, I want more than emotional crumbs. The next night, she passed by the same cafe, entered, sat down. He opened his cell phone's notepad, and she wrote as if speaking to the world. I no longer want to pretend that I don't feel. I'm tired of relationships that don't know how to stay. I'm not interested in fashion detachment. I want the real, the simple. What remains when the body gets tired, but the soul still holds the hand. As I typed, other tables filled with connected and lonely young people. People thirsty for affection but afraid of it overflowing. People saying, "Don't to fool me," when they really meant, "Prove to me that I can trust." The cell phone vibrated. A message, a hi, from someone she almost forgot. And for the first time in a long time, Lena didn't ignore it. She replied, no calculation, no intention, just with presence. Maybe it was just another empty beginning, but maybe, just maybe, it was the start of something that didn't need games. In the city that never stops, where hearts are on standby, Lena chose to get off autopilot, because she understood that stay with me was never weakness, it was courage, and that saying, don't fool me before trying, is just another way of avoiding what could work. In the end, what really scares you is not love. It's the possibility of not being loved to the same degree. But loving with fear is not loving. It's surviving. And while many continue to close doors before even hearing them knock, someone needs to have the courage to open the window, just to remember that love is not dead. He's just waiting for those who still know how to stay. And now that you know this, the question is, will you keep saying, don't deceive me? Or will you have the courage to say, stay with me again?